world was created, which God looks after which function, and recurring through reworking. But in each age, each time, these myths are reworked and express themselves through the medium and need of that age. Next, please. Myth of Sisyphus, which we all know and which is so relevant today. Sisyphus was cursed with, rolling a stone, a rock, towards the peak of the mountain, but he was also cursed that it would never be completed, it would never be done. तो हर रोज वो एक चट्टान को पहाड़ की चोटी की तरफ लेकर जाता था और पहुंचने से पहले ही कुछ ना कुछ गड़बड़ हो जाती थी। पैर फिसल गया, चट्टान एकदम से हिल गई, बाजू थक गई, वो डिस्ट्रैक्ट हो गया, समथिंग वुड हैपन एंड द रॉक वुड कम sliding down and he would start the next day again. And this is what the modern man is doing. We are condemned never to complete what we start. Okay, so this myth is alive and active in each and every age because one is the helplessness of the human being and the supremacy of gods. हम आज भी कहते हैं भगवान आज का दिन कटवा देना जी. And of course there is the will, the human endeavor which does not admit defeat. हम हार भी नहीं मानते हैं, हम थकते भी हैं, लेकिन हम काम भी करते हैं. So they arise naturally. It is a natural process. It is not artificial or you can say planned. So in a very unplanned and spontaneous manner, these things come up and find their proper voice and speak their thing. Okay, next please. So these are the 12 universal archetypes. I would advise you to go to the internet and check out Jungian archetypes. Whichever poem you read, whichever story you read, whichever novel you read, whichever hit film you watch, Sholay and Bahubali and this Dhurandhar, they are all based on one or the other of these archetypes. So whichever narrative uses the archetype well and whichever shows a proper affiliation of the archetype to the story and story to the archetype, that becomes a hit. Okay, so and Jung says कि हम सब की जो सोच है वो सब मिलाकर एक यूनिवर्सल सोच है, अ यूनिवर्सल अनकॉन्शियस है. हम चाहे कहीं भी रहते हैं, चाहे आर्कटिक और चाहे एंटार्क्टिक और चाहे इन बिटवीन, we all have a shared system of beliefs, values, emotions, instincts. हर युग में हर जगह पर माँ अपने बच्चे को बचाती है. हर युग में कोई ना कोई ट्रिकस्टर होता है जो धोखा देता है. हर युग में एक दोस्त होता है जो आपको सीधे रास्ते पर लेकर जाता है या आपके मरने पर आपकी कहानी अपने बच्चों को सुनाता है, जैसे वीरू ने जय की कहानी सुनाई. ठीक है, शोले देख लेना, one of my favorites. Okay, and they the collective unconscious is a reservoir of memories and experiences, and its commonality is that they are found in myths, fairy tales, dreams, and modern storytelling. And there is a writer called Angela Carter. She has interpreted ancient fairy stories in a very, very modern way. उसके अंदर स्नो वाइट उतनी सीधी नहीं है, गोली भी मार देती है. Okay, and their purpose is to act as a template for human experience and provides a framework for understanding life's challenges. Next, please. So these archetypes you will find out. और उसके बाद आपको जैसे पूरी सृष्टि का और पूरे लिटरेचर का एक बेसिक ब्लूप्रिंट मिल जाएगा. आगे चलिए. तो इनके जो मिथ है या जो विल है उसके 3 पर्पस हैं. मीनिंग मेकिंग, दे मेक द वर्ल्ड कॉम्प्रिहेंसिबल, दे आर रेलेवेंट, दे शो the relevance of whatever is happening and whatever happened in past and in present as a form of continuum. एक धारा प्रवाह है, एक पेड़ है जिसमें नीचे से जड़ों से रस ऊपर की तरफ जाता है और भांति भांति के पत्ते और फूल और फल खिलते हैं. आगे चलिए. ये इंडियन मिथ ऑफ क्रिएशन है. दिस इज ब्रह्मा जी विद ऑल द 4 हेड्स, एंशियंट. दिस इज कॉल्ड ए रिलीफ. ये चट्टान में खोदा हुआ है और हंस पर बैठे हैं, हाथ में उनके अपने अस्त्र शस्त्र हैं और चारों सिर एक साथ दिखाई पड़ते हैं. दैट इज अ वेरी यूनिक representation. Second is the Hiranyagarbha or the golden womb. Rigved की opening lines पढ़िए and I promise you it is some of the most beautiful poetry written ever anywhere. So this is the pahadi painting of Hiranyagarbha. सोने का अंडा है और उसमें क्रिएटर प्रजापति बैठे हैं. उससे अगला है समुद्र मंथन. क्षीर सागर का जो एक चर्निंग हुई, उसका मंथन हुआ. कूर्म पर वो हैं और शेषनाग जी रस्सी बने और एक तरफ से देवताओं ने और एक तरफ से असुरों ने पकड़ा और उसमें से चांद, अमृत और बहुत सारी कामधेनु गाय भी निकली. Right? So, you see in each age, according to the colors and mediums available, that myth is created and recreated, re-expressed. Next, please. This is the ancient Mayan myth of creation. So, this is a modern painting, but ओके, आई विल रैप इट अप. सो ये देखिए, ये मॉडर्न रेंडिशन है, ये पेंटिंग है. आगे चलिए. ये इनुइट मिथ्स है. आर्कटिक में रहते हैं जो लोग, इग्लू में, उनका आर्ट है. ये टोटेम्स बनाते हैं. आगे चलिए. नेटिव अमेरिकन माइथोलॉजी, जो अमेरिका के नेटिव्स थे, उनकी फायरफ्लाई मिथ है, विच क्रिएटेड द यूनिवर्स. आगे चलिए. एक पुराना एक नया ऐसे दिखा रहे हैं. दिस इज गाया इन ग्रीक माइथोलॉजी, द मदर अर्थ, एंड दैट इज ज़ूस or the god of thunder and lightning in Greek mythology. This statue no longer exists, but it was one of the 7 wonders of the world. Okay, बहुत ऊंचा है, बहुत ही खूबसूरत था पर है because of modern technology. This is an AI rendition. Next, please. So the muse as the intersection of myth and mythos. तो myth and mythos कहाँ आकर मिलते हैं, कहाँ से creativity शुरू होती है? That is one. This is Botticelli's Simonetta. Simonetta was the most beautiful woman in Florence in late Renaissance, early Renaissance. So he based his birth of Venus or the Primavera painting. In that he based Venus, the goddess of beauty, on Simonetta. And this is a sculpture called the Muse by a modern sculptor, Brancusi. Brancusi. So this is the Muse. आप देख सकते हैं कि something which is small but vast. There is a lot inside waiting to be unfolded, explained by all of us here. Next, please. This is telling and retelling. Now, see my excitement and surprise. This is in Zurich, in Switzerland, the Kunsthaus Museum, and the main installation there is this. This is something what Manish Malhotra would make for a modern wedding, for a hi-fi wedding. And this is both of them. And I felt it was a bit like Bhangra or Gidda. And they are wearing these glorious costumes which we feel कि इन्होंने चांदनी चौक से मंगवाई होंगी. आगे चलिए. Okay, creating, critiquing, revisiting reality. So ऐसा नहीं है कि AI आज की डेट में सिर्फ खराब कर रहा है और ऐसा भी नहीं है कि लिटरेचर ठप हो गया. So this is from the New Yorker. It is a film review, editing review of Walter Murt's latest story. This is a podcast from London Review of Books. मेरी सुबह इन चीज़ों के साथ शुरू होती है. And Matthew Broderick stars as the titular grifter. Grifter is a myth, an archetype in Tartuffe. It is a play by Molière in French literature. So, 17th, 18th century. So, everything is alive, everything is finding its voice wherever possible. Next, please. The Living Guides to Life, Telling and Retelling. Earlier, our Ramayana, Mahabharata stories from the Upanishads were all oral narratives, then they were written down on Tadpatra, then they were published, then they were turned into cartoon pics or Amar Chitra Katha stories, and that is the principal Upanishads, edited and expounded by Professor Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan. So there is a lot of telling and retelling, a lot of ways of understanding what we have and what we are going to do. Next, please. How the Panchatantra traveled the world. Panchatantra is known everywhere. Next, please. Mythos or the plot. This is all, Sophocles, Oedipus Rex, myth of the Sphinx from Oedipus. And then this is a theatrical poster of Oedipus. I cannot tell you the story, but it is the most fascinating story. And my friend, when I made him read this, he said, मेरे तो जी बाल खड़े हो गए और मैं 3 रात सो नहीं पाया. So that powerful. And Aristotle says that this has, Oedipus Rex has the most perfect plot. And that is an image from the New Yorker of the Oedipus and his tale. Okay? So, past, present, different media, same voice. Next, please. मिथोस का ये एक्सप्लेनेशन है, मैंने आपको थीसिस में ही बता दिया. आगे चलिए. ये एक नदी है ऑस्ट्रिया में, वहाँ सब लोग अपनी विश का ताला बांध कर आते हैं. जब वो विश पूरी हो जाती है तो जाके ताले को खोल देते हैं. So each lock is a story, a wish, a desire to express and to gain, some control over life and its direction. Next, please. Gilded Tree with Singing Birds, Byzantium. I am referring to W.B. Yeats' poems Sailing to Byzantium and Byzantium. ये वहाँ का जो राजा था थियोफिलोस 829 to 842 AD, मैं AD लिखना भूल गई हूँ, माफ कीजिए. In 829 AD, he wanted to show off the grip on technology and science, so he got this golden tree made, in which there were technical birds. ये ऑटोमेटा बोलते हैं इसको मॉडर्न टेक्नोलॉजी में, ऑटोमेटा जो अपने आप जिसको घुमाओ तो सब अपने आप चलता है, हिलता है. तो इसको जब चलाओ तो ब्रांचेस हिलती थी, पत्ते हिलते थे, और गोल्डन बर्ड्स अपने पंख हिलाते थे, और चू चू की आवाज भी आती थी, या गाने की आवाज भी आती थी. तो तब भी साइंस थी, तब भी टेक्नोलॉजी थी. ढूंढने वाले को मिलता है. दैट इज व्हाट. आगे चलिए. So I've shown the bird, which becomes a symbol of immortality. It is the phoenix in Yeats's poetry, which sings of the revival in face of mortality. Man is mortal, and that is why literature and all creative activity exists, to immortalize oneself, to leave some footprints on the sands of time. आगे चलिए. So seeds of time, roles and goals. So this is a projection of Tempest, helped by Intel. Then Henry VI, parts 1 to 3. This is, of course, an advertisement of Intel, that Intel is helping. Look at that eye being projected on two walls. Okay. And the last is an operatic presentation of the magic flute, Mozart's opera. And it is presented with the help of puppets and real water. Next, please. Next, yes. So integration and dispersal. Myth integrates and is dispersed through transmedia storytelling. So this is a presentation of The Flies, Le Mouche by Jean-Paul Sartre, and The Flies is based on the myth of Oedipus, or the story of Oedipus. So a modern rendition of an ancient story. And Clytemnestra, again a play which is presented in a modern way with a lot of multimedia as well as physical stage setting. Next, please. Then Dr. Faustus. All of us have a Faustus sitting inside. मैं किताबें नहीं छोड़ सकती, जितनी किताबें हैं बिना पढ़ी हुई, फिर भी कोई दिखती है तो मेरा हाथ ऐसे जाता है. कोई पेन कलेक्ट करता है, कोई कहानियाँ कलेक्ट करता है, कोई गीत कलेक्ट करता है, और हम में से हर एक के अंदर एक वो चीज़ है जिसके लिए हम कुछ भी कर सकते हैं. Right? So Dr. Faustus, Kit Harington, imagine he's enacting Dr. Faustus. Then Tom Hiddleston is in the Night Manager wala. He has enacted One King in the Hollow Crown series presented by the BBC and brought to the screen by PBS. And Frankenstein 2025. अभी दिसंबर में, नवंबर में ये रिलीज हुई है, and it's a beautiful rendition, though Benedict Cumberbatch and Johnny Lee Miller enacted Frankenstein on stage, in which एक दिन बेनेडिक्ट कम्बरबैच फॉस्टस बनता था और दूसरा मेफिस्टोफिलिस सेटन शैतान, और दूसरे दिन वही एक्टर जो एक दिन फ्रैंकेनस्टीन था या साइंटिस्ट था, दूसरे दिन वो मॉन्स्टर बनता है. सो दिस change, interchange also says that all of us have a monster as well as a scientist inside, and the scientist wishes to create immortal beings, and the monster wants to be loved. Okay, so interaction going on. आगे चलिए. Color shape movement, painting by Klimt, Gustav Klimt. This is The Bird by Brancusi. That is, exponent of minimalism. कम से कम इंट्रिकेसी में ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा बात कह देना, ये अपनी जगह पर स्थित है, लेकिन ये उड़ना जो है इसका और उड़ान जो है वो इसी के अंदर निहित है. आगे, इट इज़ ए मोबिल बाय Calder. This is also, it can be hung from the roof, और आती जाती हवा से ये हिलता रहता है. So the sculpture is created anew with each whiff of air. हर हवा के झोंके के साथ स्कल्पचर का प्रारूप बदल जाता है. आगे चलिए, वीडियो दिखाते हैं. ये पहले कॉमिक था मैट्रिक्स का, फिर 3 फिल्में बनी, फिर वीडियो गेम बना. तो वीडियो गेम के एक जो ट्रेलर है वो देख लीजिए. ये 3 बुलेट आ रही हैं या 3000 बुलेट्स, प्लीज देखिए.
Hi, I'm Thomas Anderson. Like many of you, I work with computers. But computers are also mirrors, reflecting back who and what we are and the choices we make.
Created by a
The worlds we build. You still got it.
Like riding a bike, they say.
All right. आगे चलें. आगे चलें. What happened? Okay, so critiquing scientific advancements also. हम क्या कर रहे हैं? आगे चलिए. आगे चलिए. Philosophical questions of for our times, and the key survival skill for 2026 is critical ignoring. जो पसंद नहीं है उसको इग्नोर मारो और आगे चलो. सो आगे देखिए, ये बीच का कार्टून देखिए, और एक हंस देख रहा है उड़ने से पहले. फोन है, चाबियां हैं, वॉलेट है. सो दिस इज क्रिटिकिंग व्हाट वी हैव बिकम. आगे चलिए. ये एक एसेसिन्स क्रीड का वीडियो था, ट्रेलर. ये आप अपने घर पे देखेंगे, अब टाइम नहीं है, पर ये बहुत धूम धड़ाके वाला है. एंड रीवर्किंग ऑफ मिथ इन ए वीडियो गेम. आगे चलिए. सो ब्रिकोलाज, ये देखिए, सब जो कुछ है आसपास उसको लेके, और ये मोनालिसा का मजाक उड़ाया है. पुराने ज़माने में फांसी हो जाती और अब सेल्फी लेना आज का परम धर्म है. आगे चलिए. आगे चलिए. द विल एंड द वॉइस, लास्ट देखिए, सिर्फ लास्ट. और ये दिव्य ज्योति डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ इंग्लिश और जेसी बोस यूनिवर्सिटी को समर्पित है. ये यूएनडीपी के लिए हमने एक वीडियो बनाया था. चलिए.
मेरे सपने ने खोली आंखें, मेरी आंखों ने देखा सपना. एक लंबी सी आह भरी मेरे कदमों ने मारी छलांग. मैं उड़ी, लांघी घर की चौखट वौखट, बेखौफ, निडर, पुरजोर नजर. सीखा, समझा, जाना मैंने, और खुद को पहचाना मैंने. मैं उड़ी, छोड़े घूंघट, खोले किवाड़, नापी सड़कें, लांघे पहाड़. मेरी मेहनत को ओढ़ा मैंने, खाया खुद का बोया मैंने. मैं लड़ी, किस्मत पीछे, हिम्मत आगे, अब मुझको सब कुछ बनना है। मेरे आंचल में है पंख लगे, देखें तो कहां किस ओर चलें। लो उड़ी मैं उड़ी, मैं उड़ी।
थैंक यू। आगे स्लाइड में थैंक यू है, वो भी दिखा दीजिए। ये रीकैप है, उससे आगे थैंक यू है। मैंने यहाँ से सामान लिया, ब्रिकोलाज। तो थैंक यू टू एवरीवन।
Ladies and gentlemen, I know no one wanted this lecture to stop. This was the most vibrant lecture we've had so far. There was a lot of erudition. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Thank you, Ratashji. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us. We have new guests in the auditorium with us. I acknowledge their presence and welcome to the plenary session of Transmedia Storytelling, Narratives, Discourse, and Dissemination. We have just had a wonderful and mesmerizing talk by Professor Neer Kavalmani. She's retired principal, Government College, Mohana, and from a wonderful family of educationists and artists. As you could very much tell from her presentation, the will and the voice, and she literally ran you through the whole corpus of English studies with its most charming and vivid rendition, including multimedia, films, and different kinds of modes. Also, the lecture was not just erudite, engaging, it was motivating because it had a message in the end to keep the Faustus alive in you, which is the mischief maker, you know, the bright-eyed and bushy-tailed imp that lives in every one of us, and because of whom we do a lot of human things that we say to err is human, but we also, you know, the human achievement is also owing to it, the inventiveness is also owing to it. So ma'am, thank you for this lecture, and we would really want to hear this again and maybe in another talk, but I'm sure that because this is live session and people will get to listen to it on YouTube and Facebook of the university, these pages would be helpful and you can access the lecture anytime. But if you want to listen to her in person, then we'll invite her again to JC Bose University. Because we are pressed for time. Before we go to the next plenary talk, I would like to acknowledge Miss Tanya and her team. They have arrived from Lithuania, and thank you. That means it's an Indo-Lithuanian friendship, and hats off, and we hope that it lives. So long live that friendship. Oh, wonderful. My organizing secretary would want to, you know, say 2 lines about Miss Tanya. Please.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Divya ma'am, for introducing me to our guest. Dr. Tanya Lithuania is impaneled by the government of Lithuania on the list of psychologist counselors. So we welcome you, madam. We welcome you with our whole heart. And then we also get to know more about her, that she is active on international projects which are related with migrants and refugees, and she's associated with international organizations like NATO. So this is really a moment of honor for all of us that she's among us today, and we look forward to, have her insights on our plenary sessions. Also, when I got a chance, so let me also thank Neer ma'am for her fabulous talk. As always, she has just driven us all along with her through her mesmerizing, slides, and the kind of talk which she delivers is just as amazing as she is. Now we move on to the next segment. We have with us Dr. Geeta Rani Bindal from University of Delhi, and we invite you, ma'am. We invite you, ma'am, for your deliberation. So here we have with us Dr. Geeta Rani Bindal ma'am with us. I would like the audience to kindly cheer up for her. Yes. So here we go. Thank you, ma'am.
I'm awfully sorry for interrupting, but I would again want to acknowledge two more guests who have joined us, and this is Jagdish ji's team, I believe, and I need to acknowledge that he has lent more radiance to the event. Thank you, sir. Jagdish ji is head of Balaji Institutions. We have with us. He has invited over friends, Mr. Anand Mohan Chaitanya. आनंद मोहन चैतन्य जी नमस्कार, आपका स्वागत है. सर भी लिथुआनिया से हैं. आनंद बोध चैतन्य from Lithuania. Dimanta Kumar. Oh, that's an interesting name, Dimanta Kumar. So this is, it tells, we can make, it's a very intriguing name, and I'm going to ask Dimanta why he's called Dimanta Kumar. Oh. Okay, so Demanta means diamond, and that is why the hall is glowing. And we are happy, our master's students and our faculty, we are happy to have you with us. Now, I would welcome ma'am to start her plenary session, and I know this is going to be wonderful. She would be talking about T.S. Eliot, The Wasteland, and she would connect it to the Puranas. She would allude to Indian knowledge system, SDGs, which is Sustainable Development Goals, and UHV, which is Universal Human Values. So this would be a lecture which resonates with the flagship campaigns of Indian government. Thank you very much. Here's the dais, ma'am.
National and international celebrities. Namaskar. As Madam Divya Jyoti told, I am not going to talk of T.S. Eliot. Rather, I am going to talk of Shakespeare, and that too covering Indian knowledge system, Vedanta and Vedas, Upanishads, sustainability, which is a problem or a solution. I am going to talk about all these things. I begin. The current discourse on sustainability remains trapped in a cycle of symptomatic thinking. By focusing excessively on resource depletion, carbon emission, and biodiversity loss, it overlooks the fundamental question: how do humans understand their relationship to the world? Prevailing frameworks treat sustainability as a logistical challenge, assuming survival can be engineered through better management or innovation. This approach leaves our metaphysical orientation unexamined, allowing planetary exploitation to appear both normal and inevitable, even as it produces collapse. This crisis stems from a fundamental shift from inhabiting shared reality to possessing it. Subjects no longer participate in their environment but stand apart as entitled owners. Sustainability thus paradoxically becomes a strategy for maximizing consumption without triggering immediate systematic failure. Heidegger captures this reversal succinctly. We do not dwell because we have built, but we build and have built because we dwell. Sustainable practices become impossible with possession-based system. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad offers a way of thinking about endurance grounded in eternal regulation rather than external control. Its formulation of triple dam, that is restraint, datta, that is giving, daya, compassion, describes how desire, wealth, and power are held in balance before they harden into domination, not as imposed ideals, but as conditions that allow relations to remain viable over time. Shakespeare's comedies return to this pattern through dramatic pleasure rather than doctrine. Tad etat trayam shikshed dam danam dayamiti. One should learn these three: self-control, dam, charity, dan, and compassion, daya. According to Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Prajapati delivers a final instruction to gods, humans, and demons in a single syllable, the. Although the sound remains acoustically identical for all three, its meaning shifts according to the existential vulnerability of each group. The utterance does not impose a universal command, but reveals how ethical regulation emerges in response to dominant forms of access. Dat iti danam, damayat iti atmasanyam, dayadhvam iti prajasu karuna. In Merchant of Venice, Shylock and Antonio embody possessing forms of capital. Shylock as a hoarding user with dead money that stagnates, produces nothing, and threatens social bonds. And Antonio as an investor with living capital in constant motion at sea, exposed to risk and loss. This conflict aligns with Dutt's Vedantic idea that stagnant wealth loses its social function and turns necrotic, echoing Aristotle's view of usury as unnatural breeding of inert matter without labor or nature's cycles. Jacob's wealth came from industry and chance, while Shylock's bond abstracts it into a demand for human flesh as collateral. Shylock's anguished cry, "Oh, my daughter, oh, my ducats," is not excess, but coherence. Kinship and capital occupy the same register of ownership. What matters is possession. His insistence, "It's mine and I'll have it," exposes how reduced to technical entitlement Nyaya persists, but Dharma has been evacuated. Against this extractive usury, the play presents an alternative economy per Datta. Antonio's readiness to hazard all embeds his wealth in social network. Not hoarding, his melancholy and violence persist, but his system stays open. Portia's trial intervention halts lethal Venetian law, reframing value through mercy. I quote, "The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It's twice blessed. It blessed him that gives and him that takes. Rain falls freely, nourishes without coercion, and renews, opposing usury, draining logic. Mercy sustains both parties with depletion. The play warns that law detached from life destroys it, destroying to, evolving to matasya nyaya without dharma. Dutt averts this by trying wealth to circulation. No reconciliation occurs, only a caution. Absolute possession makes life collateral, while risk, gift, and mercy enable sustainability. Shakespeare resolves this disorder not through repression but through displacement. The green worlds of Illyria and the forest of Arden function as ethical sites in which desire is stripped of excess and subjected to discipline. Studied through Indic knowledge, Arden operates as Tapovan, a forest of austerity in which characters undergo tapasya, a formative discipline that tempers the ego. Sweet are the uses of adversity. When the forest imposes cold and hunger, it restores proportion. The icy fang of winter wind bites and blows. Unlike courtly excess, nature does not indulge illusion. This enforced simplicity enables the practice of Dham. Stripped of luxury and hierarchy, the characters learn to locate satisfaction beyond consumption, echoing the Bhagavad Gita emphasis on self-sufficiency. In both the plays, the green world is not a space of indulgence, but of recalibration, discipline desire so that it can sustain relation rather than exhaust it. The most consistent practice of Dham in these plays are the fools. Feste and Touchstone embody a paradox central to Isha Upanishad. They possess nothing, yet perceive clearly. Detached from property, status, and fixed identity, they enjoy without ownership. Feste moves freely across households, puncturing self-deception and reminding the audience that youth's stuff will not endure. Though his role in Malvolio's punishment complicates his ethics, his general posture remains one of clarity through detachment. Touchstone functions similarly. As a tester of gold, he exposes the impurities of both courtly affectation and pastoral idealism. His wit is a form of restraint, a refusal to surrender judgment to appetite or illusion. In these figures, Shakespeare offers a model of sustainable pleasure grounded in perception rather than possession, participation rather than consumption. In The Tempest, Shakespeare turns from law and social control to forgiveness, renunciation, and grace. Prospero's journey moves from domination to compassion, ending not in restored authority, but in a plea for mercy. Though a dispossessed duke, he recreates the logic that wronged him. His magic operates as a colonial extractive force, displacing the island's inhabitants and turning life into instrument. Caliban's protest makes this clear. This island is mine by Sycorax my mother, which thou takest from me. His claim reveals Prospero's rule as appropriation, not stewardship. Ariel promised freedom remains bound through threat and delay. The order Prospero creates is controlled, not just. The opening tempest is calculated disturbance designed to assert dominance. Though he wields extraordinary power, what Indian knowledge system would call siddhi, he lacks the restraint to sustain it. Power without compassion consumes itself. The island is orderly, but not at peace. The ethical turning point comes through non-human empathy. Ariel observes that the nobles are penitent and remarks that were he human, his feelings would soften. A being but air proves more compassionate than Prospero. Confronted with this, Prospero recognizes that the rarer action is in virtue than in vengeance. In Vedantic terms, he shifts from karma as reactive action towards daya, where forgiveness interrupts retaliation. Compassion endures, not mastery. I quote, I'll break my staff, bury it certain fathoms in the earth, and deeper than did ever plummet sound, I'll drown my book. Renunciation follows awakening. In Vedanta, extraordinary powers can bind the ego. Sustainability becomes ontological, grounded in interdependence. Stripped of power, Prospero admits his ending is despair without prayer. He turns from self-sufficiency to grace, seeking forgiveness freely given. While resonant with Christian penitence, this also echoes the Shvetashvatar Upanishad, where liberation arises from bhakti and prasad. Freedom comes through receptivity, not control. Asking the audience to set him free, Prospero dissolves authority into dependence. Sustainability is no longer power sustained, but humility shared. The guiding logic of this study is articulated with striking precision in the opening of Isha Upanishad. Isha vasyam idam sarvam yat kich jagatyam jagat ten tekten bhunjitha ma gridhasva kasya vidhanam. All this is pervaded and inhabited by the divine. Enjoy through renunciation. Do not covet the wealth of anybody. This is the opening shlok of Isha Upanishad. The declaration, Idam Sarvam, admits no remainder. The world is already full, leaving no space for unclaimed possession. To name the cosmos, Isha Vasyam undoes the premise of domination, replacing the fantasy of emptiness with relational ontology. The axiom ten takten bhunjitha makes enjoyment conditional. Bhog is possible only through tyag. Where surrender is refused, enjoyment becomes consumption. Where possession is relinquished, relation endures. The injunction, ma gridhasva, reveals greed not as vice, but as ontological failure. To covet is to misrecognize one's place in the world. Shakespearean comedy and the Upanishad worldview share an account of endurance grounded in relational ontology. To restrain desire, let wealth circulate, and relinquish power through compassion are not ethical refinements but necessities. Without them, systems survive only by consuming their own grounds. Comedy marks a stabilization of relation, a return of proportion, reciprocity, and shared habitation. Conflict is absorbed into a recorded ethical field rather than erased. Its effective horizon is Shant Ras, a tranquility born of alignment. Comedy becomes the genre in which survival is rehearsed, not merely enjoyed. In an age of ecological anxiety and ethical fatigue, this vision gains urgency. Shakespeare's comedies offer no policy. They enact a re-education of desire and power. Restraint appears as the ground of durable joy. Renunciation as a way of remaining in relation. Survival is secured not by excess, but by learning where to stop. To enjoy without owning, to govern without domination, and to live without consuming the conditions that sustain life. This is the shared ethical horizon towards which both Shakespearean comedy and the Indian knowledge system, with sustainable development goals, while maintaining universal human values. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Professor Geeta ma'am. This was really very, insightful. We had a lovely session today. So moving on to the next segment, we have with us Kush Gupta. Advocate Gupta is going to talk about the role played by language in the legal framework and how that system is perceived by the media and ultimately the general public. So his thesis argues that laws must be simplified in order to generate higher levels of experience and compliance, which is absent in the currently muddled legal framework. So hence his topic, which is very rightly entitled as From Transcension to Transgression, Transmedia and the Law in India. So we invite Advocate Gupta to come over and have his deliberation with the audience. I hope the audience is enjoying the sessions. I could see the cheer, here, and we are really honored with the plenary sessions going on back to back. We are really having the grace of all these wonderful people over here. Thank you. Please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. My name is Kushagra Gupta, and I am an advocate at the High Court and Supreme Court of Delhi. So my topic is From Transcension to Transgression, the Transmedia and Legal Framework in India. If you see the topic itself, it's so complicated that you can't understand what it really means, transcension, transgression, and this is the daily legalese that we as lawyers and you as citizens face every day. So I want to break it down a little as we move forward and give you examples of how this is perceived, what the solution for this is, and what my thesis argues. So if we can move on to the next slide, please. So the first quote that comes, if you move on, is, "Indeed, it is a strange disposed time, but men may construe things after their fashion, clean from the purpose of the things themselves." This is a very famous Shakespearean quote which you may recognize, but what does it mean? What it means to me from interpretation is that we see things as we want to perceive them. Law is a collective institution that we all have as citizens, not just of India, but even as global citizens. And law is a reflection of the collective conscience that we have. So my argument is that we all perceive law very differently, and since we perceive law differently, it enhances and influences our behavior in that manner. So would anyone like to guess which play this quote is from? If you just click, please. Thank you. So this is Julius Caesar, Act 1, Scene 3. So there are three elements that I would be discussing primarily in this presentation. The first one is legalese. If you move forward and click, and how legalese, which is the legal language used by lawyers, used by courts, used by judges, and how that, if you click further, is interpreted by the media and further transmitted to the public. An example of this is that a lot of decisions that come from the Supreme Court, a lot of decisions that come from the government are transmitted to the media. Recently we saw there was this case of Aravali Hills. We know that Aravali Hills are mountains, but the Supreme Court interpreted hills only to include something which is above 100 meters or above 70 meters. But for us as people, for us people living in Faridabad next to Aravali Hills, every segment of Aravali Hills is what we feel is hills. And that is why the protests erupted. But the protests couldn't have erupted if the media did not report on that news. And therefore, the media is very influential in the development of law and in the development of our civilization. However, there is a second segment, if you click further, which is the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. What this argues is that we think in different languages, and the language we think in determines our actions furthermore. So me, as a bilingual speaker of English and Hindi, I feel like I think differently in Hindi and I think differently in English. There are words in Hindi which English can never explain. Similarly, there are words in Hindi which English can't go and explain. And I believe Dr. Tanya is here from Lithuania, and she would agree the same as a bilingual speaker herself. So my argument is that laws should be framed in a way, in a language, for normal citizens to understand it. And the reason for that is, let's move on to the next slide, please. Yes, the first one. So this is an excerpt from a legal provision in one of the Indian laws, and I'll read it just to make things worse. A confession made by an accused person is irrelevant in a criminal proceeding. That's what we get. It's irrelevant. If the making of the confession appears to the court to have been caused by any inducement, threat, or promise having reference to the charge against the accused person proceeding from a person in authority and sufficient in the opinion of the court, look at the amount of commas, to give the accused person grounds which would appear to him reasonable for supposing that by making he would gain any advantage or avoid any evil of a temporal nature in reference to the proceedings against him. I don't understand it. I mean, I have studied law for 8 years, and it took me a lot of time to understand it. It could have been simply a one-liner or a two-liner. How is a citizen supposed to know the law? Because ignorance of law is not an excuse in Indian courts. So how is a citizen supposed to understand this and know what they stand for and act accordingly? This is the reason that legal awareness in India is so downsized, and this is the reason why the rate of crime is high. This is the reason why I believe that we as Indian society needs to reform to make more of our legal system, because at the end of the day, the legal system is for ourselves. More importantly, I hid one fact from you, that this is just the first part of the section. If you move forward, there are two provisos to this section itself, which I did not read. And this is just one section out of the millions of legal statutes in India, in the world. And this is the reason why we need to move forward and look for a plain drafting movement. So just by the way, this is section 22. If you move forward, section 22 of the Bharatiya Sakshya Adhiniyam, and that is the Indian Evidence Act, which I could not get until it was amended to Hindi, which is again an intersection of law and language, because law is nothing but an evolution of language and its intersection with culture. Now I understand that my presentation is just before lunch, and a lot of you may be hungry. I can't offer food, but I may offer some food for thought. Moving forward, please. So how does the media now report these decisions? The media reports these decisions. Citizens, applying Julius Caesar's excerpt that I provided you, they tend to interpret it in their own manner. And this leads to a lot of confusion. This leads to a lot of problems, because of which we may see that the judgments in India itself are 1400 pages long now. There is a trend that the longer the judgment, the better it is, and that has resulted, if we move on to the next slide, I have an infographic to show you that the Aadhaar judgment, which relates to right to privacy, is 1448 pages long. But if you go to any village in India, they don't even know what privacy is. So what is the point of 1448 pages? The Ram Janmabhoomi judgment, which is the Ayodhya temple dispute, was 1045 pages. And the result of this conceptualization is, if you move to the next slide, is that cases are being instituted in a very large manner. In 2025 itself, we had around 2 crores 64 lakh cases, which is nearly a double increase from cases instituted in 2018, which was 1 crore 53 lakhs. The reason for this is that the confusion actually makes citizens believe that they don't know the law, and then they go to courts. Then the courts are plagued with pendency. If you go to a court, the hearings take so long, your disputes get settled in 10 years just because we're unclear of what certain words mean. So what is the solution for this? The solution for this, I argue, is founded in the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis and the plain language drafting movement in India. The simpler the language is in a legislation, in a case law, and in any other manner, the more civilians will be able to understand it and become more obedient. So if you know that murder only means a few lines, and what murder is, that killing of a person is murder, that is as simple as that. So rather than restricting that aspect, I believe that we need to move forward, and we need to culminate it into a more comprehensive and sustainable system for the future. I'll give you some examples of the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis to make things clearer, because I just gave you examples of English and Hindi. So this is also called linguistic relativity, and languages like Japanese drop the words I or you, and you see that Japanese people in general are disassociated from their sense of self, and they're more collective in nature. They think like a society rather than individuals. Whereas in India, we always have distinctions like I, me, which also leads us to being more selfish and more family oriented, more conservative in those aspects. And this leads me to another generational shift that we had in 2013, which is the introduction of the third gender, the transgenders, through the judgments of the Supreme Court and the High Court. Now, if English and Hindi only talk about he or she, where do they go? That is my hypothesis also, that we need to inculcate those aspects of language. We need to create those categories for people to feel included, feel recognized, and also get their own nature. In Indian law itself, there are so many distinctions between he or she, which already amplifies the gender gap between men and women itself. Let's not even go about the third gender. And this is just one of those examples where languages fall short. But German, on the other hand, always has he, she, and a neutral third verb. So our language as a system needs to evolve and accumulate as we move on towards society. 20 years ago, we did not have the word AI. Now AI runs our life. We had the AI India Expo, which is currently running at the Bharat Mandapam. So my argument primarily is that language needs to reform with the law needs to reform with language, and that is how we collectively as a society will be able to generate more efficiency. And the last slide is just about how that can be achieved by a plain language movement. The plain language movement was started in 1906 in the US, and it took momentum in 1970s. We have more than 100,000 legislations in India which are not even applicable, which are irrelevant, but they still are on the statute books. You might not know that maybe eating a chewing gum outside this court might land you a fine or might land you in jail, because those laws are not implemented, but they still exist. So there is a parliamentary research going on to actually implement this. However, it also comes from citizens. If citizens feel that the laws are not understandable, they need to move on from that and to bring out a collective movement. Otherwise, we might go back to the lawlessness stages when democracy did not exist and people did whatever they wanted to, which has resulted in increasing mob mentality in India itself, where people do not have a common ground, where people believe that the justice system is not for them because they don't understand it, and they take justice in their own hands. This is what we have been seeing lately, and the only resolution to this, I believe, is for the reformation of us as a society and our legal systems. Now, I do recognize that I did only take 10 minutes, so if there are any questions from the audience, I'll be happy to take them. Otherwise, I'll leave you for a good lunch. Thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Ranging from the coloring of statute, then syntactical statute, semantical statute, systematical statute, and then golden rule of statute. So this is all well explained.
So,
lot of thanks.
I'm grateful to your comments and questions, sir. In fact,
Are there in
yes, of course. And to
there is a special paper on statute.
yes, and to take it forward.
Legal premises are there, Motihari and others. The garden is green, and all vegetables are green. It means all vegetables are exempted from tax. Sugarcane is also green, but not at all exempted from tax. The interpretation, plain interpretation of statute
Yes,
is
sir.
valid, and it is primary principle of law.
Yes, sir.
All are secondary.
Yes, sir. I do agree to disagree there, and I'm very grateful for that question. The only reason why I mentioned this is, yes, sir, and I recognize that very well. In fact, if and you would appreciate that in your own statement you mentioned how there are 20 interpretations for the same statute, and this is what my point is, that when there are so many causes of interpretation, what is literal and what is an interpretation is blurred. And An example of this is one of the judgments of the Supreme Court. It was called TNA Inamdar judgment. This was on universities. It was an 11-judge bench judgment, so a very huge bench after Keshwananda Bharti, which was the basic structure that we have. I'm sorry, I'm going into law and legalese again. But that judgment was so long that the Supreme Court had to form another 7-judge judgment just to interpret its old judgment. My point is that because our laws are so complicated, because we need so many literary devices just to interpret them, we land up in a dispute over our own existence and over the existence of our legal frameworks. We don't understand how it works. The Supreme Court changes its interpretation every day. Tomato is a fruit or a vegetable. We know it's a fruit, but we eat it as a vegetable. Similarly, that is where legal loopholes are drawn. Pringles sells itself as a potato chip, but it does not have any potato in it, and it exempts itself from potato tax. That is how we allow citizens to play with language, because our law and language has so many loopholes that it is so subjective to interpretation. And I'm very grateful to your question, because it actually helped me explain my thesis more. Yes. 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 Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your time, and have a good afternoon. And I also would like to take this opportunity to thank the Department of English for taking this opportunity to explore language in such a holistic manner over these 2 days. I also thank the Vice Chancellor, Professor Rajiv Kumar, for allowing me to be here, and of course the convener, Dr. Divyajyoti Singh, and the co-convener, Dr. Mamta, for this particular session, and for the lovely guests. Thank you.
So thank you, Advocate Gupta. I hope this was a very juicy session. We had discourse on interpretations, and I could see that the audience could had their own observations as well, which were very important and eminent. And now we move on. We would like to welcome our guests who have joined us in this session from Lithuania, Dr. Tanya Lithuania, and their allied friends with them, to have just 2 minutes. They're just going to take our 2 minutes. They're just going to share their observations on this particular session. Yes, ma'am, we would like to invite you here on the dais. And then we would be having our presidential remarks from Dr. R.K. Verma ji. Yes.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tanya. I'm psychologist. And if we are talking about transmedia and storytelling, it's very much connecting actually with my job, what I'm doing, because my job is based on storytelling. When person telling about his life, his story, psychologist can understand why he have problem, where is this problem start, and how we can go out from this problem, what plan we can create to go out from this problem. So storytelling is very important. In per my experience, more than 15 years consultation, I hear a lot of story, and all of us, we have story about our life, and what I want to wish you, and myself also, and my wish based on my experience, what I have. So in our life, we have some good story, some bad story, and it's normal things, actually, and it's our big experience, because without bad things, we can't be strong, we can't improve ourselves, we can't achieve something. It can be strange, but when people getting problem in life, actually they're growing more fast. And I wish all of us to have balance, and always have balance between good and bad, because good story motivating us, giving power to move forward, to achieve what we want. And about information in a language, it was very interesting to hear from you, because I'm totally agree when we are getting from ministry some new law or something new idea how to work. Sometimes they're writing simple things so horribly and so officially, and it's hard to understand. Come on, it's just like this. Just tell simple things. And also, this is part that's very important in my work, because when I need to talk with my client and I need to give my client idea or vision how it can be life different, I can't talk by terminology, what I'm studying in psychology or psychotherapy. Yes, I can use, I need to use simple words that a person who is never studied psychology, he can understand these things and what happened in his life, how he can change this. And this is very important. When we are speaking with in more simple language, it's good. Here, no need to create something more more important or something like this. Just simple life, it's very nice and very good. I think it's more close to natural life also. So thank you very much, and it's nice to be here and see you.
Thank you, Dr. Tanya, for your wonderful insights. Yes, the language needs to be jargon-free. From all these discourses, we have understood that language should be simple, and there should be people should understand the message very clearly. So now I would invite our Professor Rajkumar Verma-ji for his presidential remarks. So we invite you, sir. We invite you, and we would like to listen to your remarks here. Yes, sir, over to you.
Dignitaries on the screen, dignitaries sitting in front of me, and then the vast number of dignitaries, scholars who are attending this conference through the internet. This in itself shows the power of multimedia today, how we can connect instantly across the globe, across minds and cultures, across time zones, and probably across intents as well, to somehow create a common platform to make some meaning of the medley of intellectual that intellectualism is. Well, to me, ever since I came yesterday, I have attended all the sessions till now, and I started thinking about the topic seriously. I found that there is a meaning, the way these three core words, narratives, discourse, and then dissemination, have been arranged. What are narratives? Narratives are total figment, imagination. All narratives are mostly imagination. Even when we narrate incidents that have happened to us, the juicy part is always imaginative. So imagination, one part. Then discourse. The narrative is the story of the thirsty crow. That is a narrative. Then we come to discourse, when the story becomes codified. Where there is will, there is a way. Now the story has got codified. There could have been n number of stories, and the code would have remained the same to show the indomitability of the spirit. So that is what discourse is all about. So ultimately, narrative is the feeding ground of discourse. And then from discourse to dissemination. Now, dissemination is munde munde matir bhinna, what you see our Shankaracharya, great Shankaracharya 2000 years ago enunciated. Dissemination is where all the problem of law, psychology, literature, and intellectuals occurs. The same phenomenon, the same narrative, and even the same discourse can be so variedly construed, misconstrued, and you see, whatever. So, once again, essentially, intellectualism remains a medley. That is where we need to realize the power of transmedia, and of course, with the coming in of AI and everything, transmedia is now going to lead us in every sphere of life in our day-to-day, momentary life. Well, all the three speakers of this morning, beginning with Professor Mani, who introduced certain concepts to us, the way collaging can be done, biocollaging, the way you introduced that term and explained it to you. Then subsequently, the way Professor Bindal went on to link people from as disparate places, Shakespeare, the Vedas, and then various other, philosophers, including Aristotle, you mentioned. So, 3 time zones, 3 cultures, languages, and essentially the core that they deliver is the same. And then finally, the third speaker, the youngest amongst us, but the most potential, Kushagra Gupta, Advocate Kushagra Gupta. The way you interpreted things, it was all very illuminating. But for students, there was one common strand in all 3 speakers. And that was all 3 of them referred to, relied upon Shakespeare for furthering their argument. Sometimes nowadays, my students ask me, Britain has jettisoned Shakespeare. No intellectuals now in Britain refer to, in general, outside literature departments to Shakespeare. So he has become a relic for them. But for us in India, who are connected to the, not to knowledge and wisdom, but the quintessence, the principle behind it, and that is where Shakespeare remains relevant, because he can so easily laugh at all pretensions to intellectualism, all claims to intellectualisms, and all substance of intellectualism. That is why, my dear students, you must continue to delve with Shakespeare. I am thankful to the university, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Divya Jyoti, the English department here, for organizing this beautiful conference, which for me has been a first of its kind, the kind of range and sweep that it has had in its audience and in its purpose. Thanks, everybody. Won't hold you any longer back, because I know that I also want to join you over there over something better, over lunch. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for such a short and sweet, but really a very motivating one of your talks. And then rightfully there were remarks, and you have beautifully summarized all the gist of our plenary speakers. So you have summarized the essence of their talks, and our audience is really in a very pleasant mood, because by the time the session is obviously moving towards the lunch segment, we somehow think that people or the audience tend to get bored and they want to, you know, rush towards the lunch arena, but I could see that they are still holding their seat. It means that the sessions have been really successful ones. So, yeah. So thank you from the bottom of our heart to all our plenary speakers today for, you know, pinning down all of these, you know, audience. And now I would like Professor Jagdish ji and Arvind ji to come over here to felicitate our guests from Lithuania with this book. We would also like our dignitaries to join, you know, join in front of the stage for a group photo. Yes, yes.